to Matthew 18. And I use technology, that's another thing I don't get up. We gotta learn how to use these things. So I don't carry a Bible around. I use my electronic Bibles.
Amen. We got your floor.
And I'm reading from the King James Version, starting at verse 1 to verse 7, chapter 18, Matthew chapter 18. At the same time, came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus called a little child unto him, and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except you be converted, and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whosoever shall receive one such little child in my name receiveth me. But whoso shall offend one of these little children which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. I like to point out in the scriptures when Jesus speaks up, because sometimes we have this vision of Jesus as he just walked along and he just was super nice, and he would just let anybody do anything to him, and he called on the name of God. But Jesus, he was a revolutionary. Jesus stood for the people, he spoke for the people, and he spent his time with the people. And I just had to point that out because I think he was a radical, and that's the Jesus I follow, is the radical who stood for those who couldn't stand for themselves, who spoke for those who couldn't speak for themselves, and protected his flock. And that's what we have to do with our children as we train them and lead them. So what is it like to be a child? How can you be a grown-up but be a child? What is so special about children that we would, say, well, you know what? I have to come down from being this adult and act like a child. Well, the first thing is a child is dependent on their parent. A child, back then, they were regarded almost like property, sort of how African Americans, when they brought us from Africa, they regarded us as property. They received a little attention. They were to be seen and not heard. And so for Jesus, and these disciples, they're standing around trying to have a popularity contest. They're like, he's definitely going to save me. Peter was probably like, he's going to save me. He's going to say, I'm going to be the greatest because I'm out here following Jesus, and I'm going where he's going, and I'm saying what he wants to be spread and said, and I'm learning from him, so I'm the best student. He's going to save me. I'm just imagining that they're doing it. And instead, Jesus showed humility through a child, and the heart that we have to have, not only when we're serving God, but also when we're interacting with people and raising our children. So, for him to take this child who was considered lowly, they're just property, they're just here to work and help, and to take that child, and not he didn't just bring the child up and just say, hey, look at this little kid I got here. He sat the child right in the center. And this child did not have a problem. He didn't step back and say, I don't know about you. I'm not coming right to you. As soon as he told the child to come, the child came. So that was obedience. And often our children, before they start learning other things, they learn to listen to us and come to us without reservation or hesitation. So to me, it meant when I am going through, and even when I'm not going through, to talk to him, to talk to God, to tell him I can't hide anything from God. I'm a fairly private person. Not so much because I have anything to hide, but more because I never like to make my problems other people's problems, especially when I know I have a Lord and Savior who works these miracles in my life. You know, sometimes people say, oh, you know, God, oh, people calling on God, and like he doesn't work, you know, or like prayer doesn't work. And it does. And he does those things, and he does those little miracles in our lives, not because he has to, it's because he wants to increase our faith. And so we'll believe. So he has to do these things because he knows that we're here on this earth in the flesh. So he'll perform these miracles in our lives to show us, ultimately, I want to get the credit. I want to get the credit for your life. I want to get the credit for the work that's done. You are the vessel. So I just think first, it's just being able for him to give him that attention and put that child in the center, and that child being willing to come and say, yeah, I'll sit right here with you, you know, and Jesus pulling him out. Children are non-threatening. You know, no one's gonna be scared if they see a child walking down the alley at night and they see a little child. They're more likely gonna be concerned. You know, what is this little kid out at night for? So children are not threatening. They're not intimidating. And Jesus was non-threatening, non-intimidating. The people that he intimidated were the people that often held these big titles and thought they were high and mighty and untouchable. So he was non-threatening unless you were doing something that really was oppressing or hurting the people. Children are not good at deceiving. How many, if your child, those of you that have children, couldn't you tell when your child was not telling the truth?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So children come with no hidden agenda, and if they wanted to, when they're young, it's really hard for them to deceive you. And you know, the same thing with Jesus. When we are being deceitful, we're not walking the walk that Jesus walked. And so that's another thing I had to make sure that my intentions, when I'm working with young people and people around them, I have to make sure that my intentions are in line with what God wants my intentions to be in line with, and not for me to try to gain anything from these young people, but follow what the Spirit is telling me to do. And when the Spirit tells me to advocate, I work with a lot of young adults, and they have some very serious things that they deal with, and some of their problems are more pressing than me. But I'm in charge to make sure that even with those problems, they understand their value and to motivate them to press. The one thing I often tell the young people when they're facing something, they're ready to give up, is when you're at the end of the race, that's when you're the most tired. But somebody that wants to finish and somebody wants to win, you're going to lean in. So telling them to lean into that tape, lean across that finish line, even if they're tired. When you're tired, just lean into it. Don't even keep running, just lean. And then the next thing is a child is pure. They're unconcerned about their social status. So I've had the honor of working with people who have had a lot of resources to be able to give the young people, and they could definitely throw their titles around, but I found out that doesn't work with our youth. They could care less if I'm the president of this or the so-and-so of that. What they care about is if I care. And they're gonna find out if I care, because young people are, just like we're good at finding out when they're being deceitful or dishonest, they're also good at calling us out when we're fake. And they're also good at calling us out when we're not living what we talk, and when we're not walking the walk that we say we're walking. They will call us out and make you accountable for it. How are you going to teach this to me, and how are you going to tell me this when you don't even believe it. So that's another thing, is that no matter what position God saw fit to place me in, it wasn't for me to go and brag. Jesus, he didn't go around bragging about all the things he did. He just did it. And the people would be empowered and edified when he would come through and they would see these miracles and he would do these things. So another thing in my walk with working with young people in the community was to never let my position, a title, dictate how I treat young people and the people that I encounter. So it didn't matter. What mattered was them. I was only given that title to tell me what responsibilities I had, not to judge these young folks or treat them a certain kind of way, other than with respect. And he knew that we had to be converted and humbled. Most of the time when I would do things, and I'm talking about myself because our greatest testimony are the things that we've been through and the things that God has taken us through. That's all we really can tell people, is what he's done for us. And so they'll know that he can do it for them too. Being called and chosen to work with youth, it's a lot of responsibility. So I don't take that responsibility lightly, but anytime I have got out of pocket, got out of line, got in focus, got off course, God will come in and he will humble me. He'll take a job from you. He'll take a person from you. He'll take money from you. He'll take material possessions from you to humble you. And so I've definitely been humbled by him. So now I'm practicing how to humble myself, because when God humbles you, it's a pretty bad whooping. It normally hurts, and you remember it for a long time. So I want to practice to be self-humbled, to humble myself. And he tells us to humble ourselves, and he tells us that for a reason, okay? Because if he has to do it, it's going down. And so these are the things that I honestly have to go back to the child in order to even advocate and be able to instill any kind of seeds in these young folks that give them hope and give them some faith that it can look really, really bad but be okay. I've had students that have come to the school with 0 credits. How do you get to the age of 20, 19, and have 0 credits? That's not, to me, that's not the child failing. I'm not going to even say that it was the parent that failed, because we require our children to go to some form of education, some form of schooling. And if you mean to tell me I can send my child to school in the 9th grade, and then in the 12th grade, that child still has not earned 1 credit, I don't think those teachers should have been paid for that child. Or any child that doesn't make achievement in high school. And this is not just one. Every year I have 2 or 3 students that come with 0 credits. And those are the ones I see the most growth in. I have one young man, he said, it's going to take me 2 or 3 years to graduate from this adult program that helps them earn a high school diploma. And so I just told him, I said, well, you take 1 class at a time and you chip away at it. So this young man, he did that. He humbled himself. He came to school. He reached out for help when he needed help. And he went to the people that he knew cared and would support him. And he pushed through. And not only did he graduate in those 2 years, but he's a supervisor now. And I'm just so glad that he's there. And, I can't call anybody by name just for, their privacy's sake. But I often send other students who come in with 0 credits, and I said, why don't you talk to him? Ask him what he did, So when we're passing on that knowledge like that, they pass it on too. So it's oftentimes this work can be lonely. Sometimes you don't get the support you need, and sometimes I've definitely had to put my job on the line just to advocate and speak up for young people that I felt were getting the bad end of the stick, and who people were about to give up on or judge and give up on, even worse. And I'm just honored that, God would put me in a position like that, but we need more, you know. Reverend Harris had come over and spoke with some of the youth and got their stories, and he said, man, this is a lot. And you seem to be the person that they're able to come to, but where's your reinforcement? Where's your help? And I do need reinforcement, and I do need help, and I do need people that God is working with and working through those things with. I don't need just anybody, though. I'd rather be by myself doing it and be the right person than to bring in 7 other people and they all wrong, So I'll keep holding on until God puts some people there to help me out to get these young people on the right track. Because I don't go around with a Bible preaching to these young people or even the parents that I've worked with. They look at me and then they say, hey, how do you do this and that? And God presents those opportunities for me to talk to them about God and give him the credit and the glory, and then they're encouraged. And I've had some that came back and said, hey, after I talked to you and I prayed about this and that, this came through, like just some things that it had to be God. It's nobody but God. That's how God works when he does a miracle. He makes sure it was him. He puts his name on that, okay? So I just want to, if I could leave you guys with anything in the line of experience that I've had since 17, I'm not afraid to, say my age of 45, because I want to grow gracefully. I don't want to fight it. I don't want to fight wisdom. I don't want to fight knowledge, and I definitely don't want to get caught up in the vanity of trying to stay this young person, God will keep my spirit young. My spirit doesn't get older. So it would just be to, when you hear these things about young people and the state that they're in, instead of saying, well, you know what, that's this generation or that's this, ask the young person a question, What are you concerned about? What concerns you? And what would you want done about that concern? Who can fix that concern? If you can make something better, how would you do it? We do that often in the academic environment I work in, and those students, that's when we start seeing the change, when we start listening to them. I read a study, and it said that out of all the time that our children will talk to us in a day, we only actually listen to them 7 minutes. Our children deserve more than 7 minutes, and I'm guilty of it too, because when you are busy and you are in demand, it's a lot of things that I'm doing. I'm emailing, setting up things, having phone conferences. Sometimes I'm just like venting, call my mom, hey, I'm going through some stuff, and I catch myself that, hey, I'm not listening too, so I like to practice what I preach, and so what I told my kids is that I'm going to work on listening to them more than 7 minutes out the day. I don't know, I've never timed it and actually, watched, but I kind of like statistics because they challenge you, especially when you hear one like that. Sometimes we have to hear something that makes us a little uncomfortable before we decide to change the way we act and some of the decisions that we make. So it would just be to be open to these young people. They need us. They need our guidance, but they need us to come to them with a humble heart. They need us to come to them with a childlike heart. I've never been able to get somebody to cooperate with me by being demanding, telling them, you're gonna do this, you better do. I've never gotten cooperation that way. The way that I've gotten cooperation is giving them respect and talking to them like I value them, and I believe in them even if they're struggling. I believe in them even if they're having a hard time. And with my own kids, I would be up at that school. I didn't let them tell me who my child was. I have never let the schools tell me who my children are. I know who my children are. I'll tell you who my children are. So when we have our children in school, we need to go in and speak up for them. It's oftentimes I saw parents, they'll go into a conference and there's 5 administrators, 1 child, and the parent. And these 5 administrators would just tear this kid down. Parent is in tears. But instead of the parent being enraged that the school would not come in to talk about solutions and help them work towards solutions and find different ways amongst their own staff to engage and meet these children's needs. Instead, they would put all the blame, and often put the blame, on the parents. The parents would sit there upset, feeling like they failed their child, feeling like their child is not as intelligent as they are, because they're listening to this person tell them what they can and can't do. And then the parent would turn around and start fussing at the child. You know, you need to listen more. You need to do this and that in class more. Of course, you know, we want them to listen and pay attention to things they need to pay attention to. But a child at the beginning of the year, if they only know 2 alphabets, at the end of the year, you done spent 8 months, 180 something days with my kid, they better know more than 2 alphabets. I've had to take my kids out of school for 1 year and homeschool them for a period of time because of what was going on in the schools. I've written letters to let the school know what actions I would take if they continue to take certain actions towards my children. And I also have had to pull my child out of school due to safety and due to racism and some of the hatred that he was getting. So we have to stand up for our kids and not just believe them and go along with the okie doke or let them make us feel bad, like our kids can't achieve and our kids can't do this or that. We need to tell them what we expect them to do. And they probably got tired of me and they probably hated to see me in a meeting because they would, first and now, because I'm soft-spoken for the most part until you get on my bad side. So I would, they would think, oh, you know, we're doing this, we're doing that, and like just talking to me like I wasn't gonna stand for my child, like I was gonna stand there and be against my child along with these other 5 people. They're already intimidated. You got these officials, and you just have that one advocate. Some kids have no advocate, and you know, and they're trying to make me feel guilty. They have a responsibility. There's a statistic that says that a child's teacher has more influence over them than racism, poverty, or altogether. The influence of the teacher is more weighs more heavy on the child than all of those things combined. They have a huge role and a huge responsibility to our young people, seeing that they have that kind of influence, the kind of influence that's stronger than poverty, that's stronger than any kind of circumstances that can be going on in their home, any kind of bias or racism that they're experiencing at school, and they definitely shouldn't be the ones dishing it out. But we know that 80% of teachers are white women. Do I have a problem with white women? No, but I have a problem with how my child is being taught and what they're being taught and how they're being treated. And I want their treatment to be in line with how other students are treated, even if they're not of color. And I want them to have the same kind of equipment, the same kind of facilities that other children have that are excelling. I want them to have those same things. And yes, those teachers are responsible, because I'm responsible every day in my job to meet those young people's needs. I'm there to serve those young people because God put me there to serve those young people, just like God put these teachers, hopefully, in these schools. And I've been challenging Fresno Unified and other school districts to live up to something, you know, to excel, to show us that, you know, we shouldn't have black children not able to read, you know, not able to go past the 3rd grade level in reading. And our kids spend a lot of time in school, so I would really just love to see more people advocated for these schools to be responsible in how they handle our children, treat our children, and teach our children. So just an open mind, being humble, and guiding these young people because they need us, but they need us with a humble and childlike heart, so God can speak to us and work through us to advocate and to help change their outcomes and to lead them to where He wants them to be. And we'll get the glory in heaven. We don't have to get it here. And that's what God put on my heart to share this morning. Thank you.
Let me say amen. Truly, God is good to us. Amen. Yes. Wonderful message. Can we give a round of applause one more time?
Yes.
Amen. As our pastor get ready to come up. Amen. Our deacon, musicians, we can move forward to the next order of business. Let's give our sister let me just take a few minutes. All what we heard today, let it sink in your heart. Yes. Because God has given us a peek inside a freedom school. We have more of a peek inside a freedom school than we've had inside the Fresno Unified Schools. And the reason I'm saying this is because we as adults, we need to know what's going on. Yes, sir. Because we see the product coming out, and the product is not functioning properly. So we have to take it really upon ourselves. Really upon ourselves. That's why we have Freedom School. We have fantastic people like Sister Marie. Yes. That are functioning inside of that